Thank you. I love a microphone. Do you love a microphone? What I love more than a microphone is car keys and driving. And when you're driving, it's a great way to find out about how much you trust the people that are with you, around you, next to you, driving on the road with you. So I want to talk about EQ, because would you give your car keys to your employee? Would you take your boss's car keys? Or would you be too scared to get behind the wheel, depending on what kind of car they were driving, depending on what the road conditions were? Would you be too nervous to trust them enough to say, here are my car keys? Emotional intelligence is one of the things that allows you to trust people, to know them, to be able to perform better with them. So take a look around. Maybe you're sitting next to your teammates. Maybe you're sitting next to your person that's your friend in your association. Would you give them your car keys? I know when I first learned to drive, I wasn't giving anybody the car keys because I love to drive. The more I learned how to drive, the more I realized how fun it was. I wanted to share the experiences with people. But what about that road trip you went on with somebody where maybe they were just annoying? They bought gum. You had 2 hours in the car with them. They were chomping on their gum and you didn't know what to do with it. Thinking about those moments and people that you work with, are you giving them the kind of information that they need to be able to be successful? Have you set them up for success? Are you clutching those car keys? So I want to share with you, when you think about your emotional intelligence and knowing yourself as a leader, as a teammate, where does it begin? So this is the framework to be thinking about your self-awareness. How much do I know myself? What am I like? I've got that steering wheel, I'm driving along. You know what? I'm zigging, I'm zagging, there's no problem or anything. But next to me, my coworker, they're struggling. They're holding on for dear life onto the top of that thing. Are you aware of what you're doing? Are you self-regulated enough to know how do you react to things? Now, for those of you that have children, if you've ever taught them how to drive, there's a moment in the car where you're putting your foot on the brake, your hand on the wheel, you've stopped breathing, you're nervous, and you want to yell out, "Stop!" at the top of your lungs. Can you regulate yourself enough in certain situations? Now, as a leader, when performance gets more demanding, the stakes are higher, sometimes we stop talking, we stop sharing things, or we blurt out. Are we able to self-regulate ourselves? All of these are things related to emotional intelligence. So the third part of this framework with emotional intelligence is your social awareness. Are you aware of what's going on around you? You're in that car and you're driving, and do you know what the people are like next to you? Your passengers in the front seat next to you, that co-pilot, the people behind you in the back seat. Are you aware of the surroundings around what's going on? Social awareness is where we break down in many cases because we have no sense of ourselves. So for the years of coaching I've done with leaders, one of the questions I ask them is, do you have a nickname? Do you have any social awareness of what people think about you? Are you so set on your ways and you're clutching that wheel and you're determined to get somewhere that you have no clue what's going on around you? Without that social awareness, your team is set up for failure. I'll be honest, you're not going to get the best performance out of each of the people on your team. They're not going to relax. They're not going to show you their best work. They're not going to fail. We all make mistakes when we're driving. Or maybe we drive too fast, or maybe you whip a U-turn, or maybe in your team you put a PowerPoint together that there are some slides in there that you want to help people understand what you're actually saying. Without that social awareness, you're really going to have a hard time building the kind of team that performs at that high level. So tapping into the EQ of everybody around you and what you're doing. Because that final piece of the EQ framework is relationship management. Do you know what your relationships are like? Do people know you, like you, trust you enough to get in the car with you? Do they want to drive a half an hour with you? Do they want to drive across country with you? If you're the kind of person that has no idea about your relationships, sit down and think about it. Start ranking your relationships of your teammates. What would they honestly say about you? Would they say, you know what? It's a bit of a crazy driver. You know what? I don't want to get behind him because that guy's pulling out his phone all the time. He's texting while he's driving. He's looking around. He doesn't tell us where we're going. Oh, all of a sudden, zoom, we're on an on-ramp. Change of projects. Knowing your relationships piece is key. So here's a little bit more detail of things. We can go into this later on in our conversation today, but understanding and having that self-awareness. What's my emotional state? Am I hot? Am I breathing? Am I pressured? You can read things. 60% of your understanding of other people comes just from observing them physically. So do you know your own physical state? I know my tell when my emotional state is, I put my hand on my hips and I know I'm getting a little hot. I'm about to land a big message. So what do you know about your emotional state based on how you show up with other people? How do you respond or react? Again, are you explosive? Are you one who blurts out? What are you like as a leader? How do you respond instead of reacting? How can you be more in control, more collaborative, more attaboy? Let's go, come on. We're gonna have a great road trip. Let's stop at this convenience store. What are we doing? And again, knowing what's happening with other people and that relationship management. So again, we'll go into more of these because the reason why this is so important, again, look around you with people. Everybody knows that the leader that doesn't let go and give them the steering wheel, you got a problem. You know they don't have confidence in you. But we want to, trust but verify. So we've got to think about some of these pieces of the framework of emotional intelligence. So if the keys are your trust, am I going to give you these keys? Not sure. But you know what? I know I have to because as the leader, you can't get everything done. Do they have the tools and the resource and the clarity to be able to do what they want to do? Does everybody know what they're doing? Team meetings, we have those, but okay, are they really productive team meetings? Are people relaxed? Now we have Zoom calls and virtual work together. Are we really clear about what's happening? Now this is a big one, is the road of what are you doing? Where are we actually driving? What are we actually doing? What have I said to my employees? Because whoever's got the steering wheel, they know exactly where they're going, but have they communicated it clearly enough as a leader with other people, as the team leader? Or are people asking questions about it? Because you can't know where you're going and get the result you want unless you're having some conversations about those things. And we all drive at different speeds, right? We all have been taught different rules. Drive in the middle lane, drive in the fast lane, only go in the fast lane when you're passing. We all have different rules. And that EQ is going to help you have conversations about all of these things because the fuel is what is really going to drive your success. Coaching, feedback, conversation. Why EQ is so important is, do people shut down? Do we shut down when we're in the car? Stop talking. Maybe you're in the back seat. They don't say anything ever to you. You have employees on your team that you're like, you know what, they're a really good performer, but I don't know what they really think. Are you spending time with them one-on-one? I can always tell whether teams like each other or not. Again, that 60% of the body language or the tone or the laughter, how close do they stand next to each other? Before I ask the question of would you give the car keys, I know the leader that'll never let them go. The car keys sit on their desk, get in at 8 o'clock, they leave at 5:30, they never let go of the car keys. And then they wonder why they're tired or why their team isn't performing, because you have to learn how to work with them. So I want to tell you a little story here of working at Best Buy with executives and leaders. And it was one of those leaders that really wondered, why is my team not negotiating better? Why are they not selling? Huge pressure, right? Fourth quarter, holiday season, so much sales happens in those moments. And one of the things that I observed was they never really talked to each other, the leader and the employee. They had never really spent that kind of time that you spend with somebody when you're on a road trip, where you really get to know what they're like. And the challenge was they both had the same intentions, but they hadn't broken down that barrier of increasing performance. There wasn't the EQ and trust between the two of them to be successful. One of the things that I suggested was, sit down and talk before the meeting and sit down and talk after the meeting. Well, I don't have time for that. I got a lot of resistance. I don't have time. I can't meet with them. And I said, what if you tried it? What if you just tried it 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Let's have a pre-meeting. Let's have a little planning meeting and talk about that. Not a real 30-minute, get it all sorted out, go through every detail, but a conversation with them. 5, 10 minutes, start with that. And sure enough, they had that meeting, they go into the sales meeting, they work on what they're doing with their vendor, they're on the same team, and then they decided that after the meeting they were gonna talk. The employee was excited, they wanted to know how had they done? How were they? Were they strong? Were they good? Were they helpful? What could they do to get better? The trust was built in there with everything that they were doing. That was the fuel and the emotional intelligence connection that they were looking for. And again, didn't take tons of time, but it built that genuine relationship where they were actually looking at each other. They were actually talking about things. They were on the same page. They knew where they were going. They knew what they were doing because they had those clear expectations. They could break it apart to understand what they were doing because you want to give your employees the keys. You don't want to be the one that's coming in late and telling them what's wrong and what they didn't do right and all of that. That feels awkward. Somebody's tried. Set them up for success. Work through that. You also really want to know, are we looking around? Are we both on the same page? What's working? What's not working? Where are we going? What are we doing? And then thinking about how can we celebrate? Hey, that was a great job. Nobody's perfect. You want to be able to do the things that you're good at and have the fun stuff. So I want you to think about that EQ, because what are you bringing to it? You're in the driver's seat. You've got the keys. What does the other person need from you? What can you do to be more powerful? What is it that you can do? So I'd ask you to say, you know what? How can you drive their performance? What is it that you can do to set them up for success? And then today, I encourage you, take one person, give them the car keys, give them the chance to lead, and tell them how they did. So here's on you.